interwebkaiju here. These are Jägermeister shot glasses because this is Pacific Rim. Monsters from another dimension are coming to Earth through a portal located in the bottom of one of the oceans, and mankind has created giant robots to combat them. Monsters are called kaiju and are described by categories a la natural disasters, and the robots are called Jaegers and are piloted by two people who are neurally linked. Over time, the kaiju keep coming more rapidly, and humans are now planning to destroy the portal, called the Breach in the film, and end the war once and for all. There's a lot of little details throughout the movie that I like. Brief thrusters ignited to aid in the Jaeger's movements, the showing and science of kaiju organs, the waterless seafloor after an explosion. When selecting a new co-pilot, the main character has a series of sparring fights with candidates, and this is a good segment. The fights are good and well shot, and the emotions on the fighters' faces add something that's missing from the rest of the fights in the film. I'm not a huge fan of the kaiju designs, but I like all the neon and bright lights that are put into otherwise dark and muddy ones. This tongue scene sticks out. The designs do vary as there are a lot of different kaiju and Jaegers on display. Sadly, none of them are too memorable, and most of them are only featured for less than a minute. This lessens a sense of how much of a threat a certain kaiju is, and lessens the relief once they're defeated. Knifehead is my favorite of the kaiju designs, and this is probably just because he's basically just a revamped Giran from the Gamera movies. This kaiju is pretty cool too, equipped with wings and this cool tail. Mako's chasing the rabbit memory scene is my favorite in the whole movie. The transition to it with the lights inside the Jaeger dimming down to just her helmet light, and then the ash which starts to fade in is great. The actual memory shows not only kaiju actions in daylight, but also fear for the kaiju, seldomly seen in the rest of the film. To add to this, the music involved is probably also my favorite in the film, escalating the scene's intensity. Additionally, kudos to the child actor. There's no lines, but it's still great and probably the most emotion shown in the whole movie. I'm not saying that other actors are bad, they're all actually really good, but emotionally they're not really given much to do other than the final 20 or so minutes. The movie is pretty fast-paced, which is a nice change from the films I've been watching recently, but also makes it so we never really get to know any of the characters, which may actually be better considering what we have seen of them. They're just not very interesting. Well, I liked Hannibal and Newton, though both of them are extremely close to the characters their respective actors often play in non-Pacific Rim titles. The movie starts off with a recap that brings us up to speed as far as the world the movie takes place in, where the kaijus are from, why the Jaegers were built, and how the world views them. There's a lot of cool stuff in this short segment, including talk shows incorporating kaiju gags and museums displaying kaiju skulls. Sadly, all this is narrated with an overly serious, forced, grisly voice that you'd probably find in a bad war video game. More serious and raspy sounding than that character sounds in the rest of the film too. The music is a mix between heroic fares and dubstep drops. The heroic music is only bad because it's overused. They just beat a kaiju. Sure, let's hear it. But when the pilots are getting suited up or like a scene transition to a helicopter flying, those really don't need it. The drops are just meh due to that type of thing being overused in cinema throughout the past decade. The rest of the score is really good though, and more times than not, the music helps its accompanied scene. I don't like the camera work. I often felt that shots were a bit too close, and when panning, the movie usually puts a curve to the camera motion, which probably bothered me more than it should have. When characters are having conversations, the movie likes to keep cutting between two separate shots, which is fine, but in this movie it seems like it switches and slowly zooms and switches back and slowly zooms and back to the first and original zoom and slowly zooms again and so on. With some slight camera movement too, but it's not like crazily bobbing or shaking, thankfully. When the kaiju are in cities, fighting Jaegers or by themselves, the movie really shines, but sadly most of their scenes and fights are in empty oceans. I mean, that's where they come from, so I get it, but the scenes in the city are so much better. Unfortunately, only a couple are this way. Same can be said about daylight kaiju scenes and fights. They look better, but they don't appear often. The fights themselves aren't too great. They have some cool stuff in them. The tail I mentioned earlier and the chain sword are probably my favorites. The forearm Jaeger was pretty cool too. I like the science to all of it. Unfortunately, it's usually quickly explained and then pushed to the background. Honestly, I think I would have liked the movie more if it were more of a science fiction movie rather than the action movie it is. So that was Pacific Rim. It's a lot better than I remember it being. Maybe I had my expectations too high because I was a fan of both giant mechs and kaiju. But yeah, it's good. Definitely recommend it. It's not the best movie ever, but it's definitely not bad. If you have any movies, TV shows you would like me to review, leave a comment below, and thanks for watching.
Tanks, jets, and missiles took it down 6 days and 35 miles later.